Hey everyone, welcome to the takeaway. And this week, we've had a significant week in our church celebrating probably one of our significant ministries called Oasis Haven. And so this past week, we got to celebrate 25 years of them bringing hope to our community, to orphaned and abandoned children. And so we're gonna have another podcast. And a couple of weeks ago, we got to interview some of the staff, the team, and the people that have really said yes to a calling in really being the hands and feet in our community and serving these kids and really fighting for the plight of orphan and abandoned children in South Africa. And so this is going to be a different kind of podcast this week. And so Q is going to be asking some questions, and you get to just find out a little bit more about Oasis Haven and who they are and how they started. And so I hope you enjoy and hope you're encouraged. And you can always reach out to us at admin@newcreation.co.za, and you can always find a way to either give or serve or just help this ministry. We would love any contribution, but we hope that you're encouraged by just the stories that are shared in this podcast. So we hope you enjoy. Cheers.
Hi, Bev.
Hi, Q.
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
It's been so long.
It really has.
So you've had quite a journey with Oasis Haven. Mm-hmm. So in the 18 years that you have served the children at Oasis Haven, as you transition out of your role, how do you reflect on your journey with Oasis Haven over these 18 years, and what has been the most rewarding aspect of your leadership?
I think the most rewarding aspect is most certainly the fact that I am one of the probably very few lucky ones to have had my work and my passion and my calling in life all intersect and come together. And it really, truly has been the biggest honor of my life to be able to work at Oasis in a number of capacities over 18 years and to be able to serve the children who don't have anyone else in the world. And I think that's really what's been most meaningful for me.
Okay, I'm just going to go off topic a bit and just, you mentioned a calling. Why did you use the term calling, and do you view working at Oasis Haven as a calling?
Definitely. So for me, calling is something that God calls us to, and that it's not just a job you apply for. And while, you are employed and you're earning a salary, and you're not doing it for free, I don't think calling needs to mean you can't get paid for it. But at the same time, you believe you're doing what God has called you to do.
Amen. Amen. Okay, so could you share insights into the monthly annual budget during your tenure, and how did you prioritize financial decisions to support the growth and sustainability of Oasis Haven?
So when I took over as managing director, well, actually, let me go back 5 years. When I returned to Oasis for the second time, our annual budget was about R1 million a year, which felt, quite huge. And then when I took over as managing director, we were needing approximately 200,000 Rand a month to run both houses. And currently, we're needing closer to R500,000 a month. So we're looking at 6 million Rand budgets over a year's time. So it's a massive amount to raise when you are caring for 20 children. People often go, wow, that's a lot of money. But how did I prioritize and make it work? I think was to always put the children's needs first. So that often meant needing to say, sorry, salaries may be late, but we're making sure the kids have what they need. And I think that's very similar to what we do as families. We make sure that our children are okay before we look after ourselves. We make sure the kids eat before we eat, or we make sure the kids can go to school before we buy a new car. And it was really that kind of thinking, I think, that got us through.
I like how you mentioned family because obviously family is a big part of Oasis Haven and is what we want to, you know, instill in the children in one way or another. So I think it's quite important that you touched on that. So, how has Oasis Haven evolved during your time with the organization, and what key changes have you implemented to meet the needs of the children and families served?
So when I started at Oasis in 2002, we were a baby's home. And back then, our mission was to meet the needs of babies that were infected or affected by HIV. That was really the big problem in the country. Jump forward 8 years, and suddenly that was no longer the main crisis that the country was facing, and children were starting to grow up in the home, and children who were HIV positive were surviving. Children who were HIV negative weren't necessarily being adopted, and so we no longer had a baby's home situation. We had children growing up in a home, and so that was when we started with a family homes model, which was done by the managing director before myself. And I think for me, I really just carried on with a lot of what had been put in place. I didn't necessarily make a huge amount of changes. I really just tried to keep the values that we knew that were important, such as family values, very much in place. So there were small changes, and a lot of them were government driven. So, for example, our staff who were originally really just caregivers, but they didn't need to have a qualification, suddenly needed to be qualified child and youth care workers. And that's a profession and a whole different ball game. So we got that in place. People became qualified. We became more professional. Our programs became a lot more professional. But we needed to keep that balance between how do we be family and run those programs without becoming too institutionalized. So I think a lot of what I was doing was really just trying to find the balance between what our vision was for family and what the requirements were as a registered child and youth care centre to have a lot of legalities in place.
You touched on something interesting. Why do you think it's important to separate the children from the business side of things, if I could call it that?
Because for the children, it's their home and it's their family. And for the staff working there, including management, it's our job. And so children don't need to know about the business side of stuff, right? Children shouldn't be worrying about adult problems. They shouldn't have to be concerned if there's money or not. They shouldn't have to worry about the things that the adults are worrying about. They just need to be kids. Their job is to get through school, learn how to become decent people. And for the staff, it's our job, and therefore we have to be professional, we have to follow the rules, we have to tell the truth. And so, I think that was kind of how I split it in my mind, was for the children it's home, and for us it's our workplace.
Okay, so what legacy do you hope to leave behind as managing director? And what are some specific initiatives or programs you are particularly proud of?
I think the legacy is definitely just the one of having a mindset around what would you do for your own children. And so throughout my time at Oasis, I measured my decisions based on what would I do if this was a decision I was making for my children at home, for my own kids. And so if something was not good enough for my children, it wasn't going to be good enough for the children that call Oasis Haven home. So I wouldn't allow strangers to come into my house, interact with my children, tap them on the head, tell them that they love them and give them sweets and then leave. In the same way, I therefore wouldn't do that for the kids at Oasis Haven. And so I think that is probably, hopefully, the biggest legacy is just treating the kids as though they're our own, and that there's no difference. Children don't become orphans from anything they caused, and therefore they should be treated just like any other child. Just how I want people to, be kind to my children, to respect my children, to think about their dignity. It's exactly the same for the children at Oasis Haven.
All right. So over your career with Oasis Haven, what were some of the most significant challenges you faced, and how did you navigate them to ensure the organization's success?
I think the biggest challenge faced, and it probably is for every nonprofit in the history of ever, is a financial challenge. Like I mentioned, we need 6 million a year right now. 5 years ago, it was half that. So in another 5 years, we may be looking at 12 million for 20 children. And does that ever become an impossible target? So I would definitely say that's the biggest challenge, because you can have beautiful programs, you can have amazing staff, you can have the best intentions, but if you don't have the money to provide what the children need, you can't put petrol in the bus, you can't pay the school fees, you can't pay the staff to look after them, you actually have nothing. And so that definitely for me was the biggest challenge, and probably the biggest stress area was just finding that money.
Okay, so you served for 18 years as the fearless leader of Oasis Haven. What would you say, if you can remember, was your biggest highlight?
There were many. I mean, every adoption was a highlight. Every time a child, had some kind of breakthrough or aha moment or achieved something, that's the thing, right? Just as we as parents are proud of our children each time they, get some award or do well in a race or whatever it is, learn to count. Each little moment is a highlight. I don't think I had one thing that completely stood out for me as this was the moment of all time. I think it was just each little moment, each time children managed to, have a breakthrough and managed to make you proud in some way. Yeah, that's priceless.
Perfect. So as you step down, what advice or insights would you offer to your successor and the current leadership team to guide Oasis Haven into its next chapter?
I think it's important to remember that while we believe in God as our provider and we know that everything we have comes from Him, there is still that element of you need to do your part. And I shared it a few years back at our family Sunday, but the story of the loaves and the fishes, where Jesus said, "Bring me everything you have," and then He multiplied it, right? He could have just made enough food appear without asking them to go and gather what they could find. But He said, "Bring what you've got." And that's, I think, the most important thing for the leadership of Oasis is to remember, what are my talents, what is my job, what do I have, what do I need to bring, and then God will bless and will provide and will ensure that, that it all comes together.
Quite insightful. Thank you, Beverly. We are going to miss you dearly. Thank you for your service over many years. It has been nothing more than a pleasure working with you.
Thank you, Q.